conversation, I have had the moments that I've done that, they've always been insecurity induced.
Okay.
It's like when I'm doing really well, I've got a lot of clients, I'm rocking it, I'm in the conversations and I feel, it's like I'm good. And then when things kind of I have a bad, I don't know, I lose a client, something bad happens. I mean, I really used to take that personally. And
Right.
when I take things personally and feel really insecure, I have a tendency to hide.
Detach. So a lot of the things I'm getting at the moment, because I introduced my coaches to 3PGC, and I mean, 3PGC is rocking things. So they feel they're getting what they need from there. And so they sort of, disengage from me. But the problem with that is it's a generic, it's an all encompassing thing. And whereas what we do is so much more intimate and so much more intentional, but you
Yes.
can't convince people,
No.
they do what they need to do. And so you just have to move
Yeah.
on. Sometimes I think Michael Neal's the one that gets it right. He doesn't really care if you
Yeah.
stay or you go. He just
Yeah.
carries on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel I care too much sometimes, but I'm learning to say, okay,
Yeah, I
bye.
feel like that's another way of serving. Like, I think
Yes.
Michael is so great at casting a really, because in working with him, I wanted to be him. And I'm not
Mm,
Michael. But I
right.
lost sight of who I was a little bit in it because I was so enamored with him and wanted to be like him and, thought it would be so great if I was like him. I'd be more, all this kind of stuff. I had all these reasons. But what I really realized is that I offer a bit more of a hands-on, like like maybe hand holding isn't the right word, but I like to, like with my clients, I really like to have a much closer relationship with them. I think
Mm,
about them like when I just sent a message this morning because as I was falling asleep, I thought I had an insight that like, ooh, this might be really what's going on here. You want to
mm.
explore that. Okay.
But
If I had
also,
if I had as big of a community as Michael, I probably wouldn't be able to do that. So I just think he's so great at serving such a large community.
I think it's a special skill set. I really do.
Mhm.
But
And
also,
then it's so helpful within the community to have people like you and I who like to be a
totally.
little bit more hands-on or more touchstones.
But I think it's a feminine thing. I think there's a nurturing aspect that females have that is not lacking in men, but it's not as it's not as big, it's not as intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of natural.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Well, cool. Well, shall we shift gears and get into our
let's dive in.
inquiry of should I do a coaching training or not? I couldn't think of anybody better to have this conversation with than you, Sharon, because I know that you have people, you experience and interact with people having that question, people who have decided to do it as they do your coaching training program. So I feel like you are in that conversation a lot more than I am. I get that question a lot though, having been a coach for 20 years and having, people look at me and see that I'm really sick. They see my big years. I had a year where I did almost 1 million and it's like they don't see the down years. So it's like, ooh, how did you do that? Can I do that too? And can seem so easy because you can find a coaching training program that's, isn't going to break the bank necessarily and can be done in a, less than a college degree amount of time. And so it seems really doable to get rich quick.
Mm, mm. So the way I would answer that question is I see two distinct points there on deciding, whether you want to be a coach or not. And there's a big difference between a calling and a career for me. And that's what I see. Most of the people that come into my training are called. And then those people that feel that they can create a career, those are the ones that drop off because it looks so easy. And there's a few fundamental points that they miss. The beautiful part of what I'm saying is if your calling and your career is one and the same, I mean, that's first prize. And so once you are called, if you want an answer, should I really be a coach? If you feel called, then get the training, and then that can usually transpose into a career. But you've got to start with that. If you're not called and it's something you're trying to curate, that's hard, for
Mhm.
anyone making a decision. I should do this thing. And in the world of coaching, the people that make the best coaches are the ones that really feel that they've got something to offer because they've got some experience of life.
Yeah. Ooh, I want to hear more about that. I remember when I wanted to do my first coaching training program, and it was $10,000, and I didn't have the money at the time. And it felt really, really risky. And I talked to the woman several times on the phone, and I remember her saying this. This was the thing that set me over the edge. She said, "Sweetheart, doing a coaching training and starting out a coaching business creating a coaching business is a really bad idea. If you still need to do it, then you do it." And that hit me. In that moment, I knew I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I just knew there was something in me that just, it was a call. I was called. Didn't know have the words for it back then, but it
Mm.
was coming to if I don't make any money from this, do I still want to do it?
Right. I think that's the key. Would you do it even if you didn't earn $1 from it? I think that's the key. And if your answer is yes, then you should really do it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
isn't that a very interesting, having been a coach now for 20 years, my greatest struggles in growing my business is where my insecurities come in and start to run the show. And so if
Mm.
I'm doing a coaching business for money, it's all about me. And so I'm just going to have more and more of those insecurities to wrestle with. If I know this, I have to do this, whether I make a penny or not, I'm just going to have a few less insecurities to wrestle with.
Exactly right. And it's almost, you get to the point where you feel like you don't have a choice. You have to do, it's that compelling. And I think that's the greatest indicator you can have.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. You said something about, I wanted to go back to it because you said something about, the people that do really well in coaching training and after coaching training do this. What do you see as the difference in people who, come and do the coaching training program and then they graduate? Like that's also a very, and I remember that time for me was I had a coach that I was working with doing supervision coaching for a couple of years after I graduated. And she was an amazing coach, but I didn't really understand enough about what coaching is or what I was doing at the time to get as much value as I could have out of the supervision.
Mm.
And I never really looked at business systems. I think those were two of my hardest hurdles to have to overcome after graduation.
Mm.
Curious
Mm.
what you see with your coaches, like what helps them go on to, because you and I, we talk about the statistic that, we want to maybe disrupt a little bit, but that there's only 10% of coaches out there making a living coaching.
Right. I think to answer that is the word that I would use is, are they coachable? Because if you go into this thinking you already know, you
Mm.
kind of suspend your curiosity and your inquiry, and then it doesn't become exciting and interesting, and then there's an unwillingness to learn because you think you've got it already. So thinking and you don't need any more just stops that whole process of coming to full fruition as a coach.
Mm.
And the low percentage, I think, and there's a struggle within that, in thinking you need to know more, like the business systems. I think we all go through that. What I've seen, and this is for me, is that the less I know about structured business systems in the world of the corporates and big business and so on, the better I do, because now I'm trying to conform to the standards, and coaching for me is a little bit different. There's a momentum, and there's a flow, and there's a in real time kind of a experience that both you the person who's got the coaching practice or the coaching academy or the coaching business, as well as the person that you are coaching. So being available to that new innovative way of being has been, for me, the greatest key. Is almost avoiding trying to systematize too many things. I do have systems, but over systematizing tends to shut down creativity. And in the style of coaching, transformational coaching is about having creativity, your secret sauce, your flavor, your style, the artistry of coaching. Yes, there is, the science of coaching, but I feel the artistry is so much more exciting. And that's where people connect with you. They don't care about the systems. They don't care about the papers. They just want to know, I've got a problem and can you help me?
Yeah.
So I think there's just two types of people that you can coach. And one of those is, I have a problem, can you help me fix it? Or I'm getting somewhere and I want to go higher. And so I've got a problem because I don't know how to go higher. So it's just really those two. So the coaches that are fluid, they'll sense that because there's a listening. And I think there's no other industry in the world that requires as much listening as what coaching does. And so it's less about all of those other things, and it's way more about listening. If you're a good listener, that person will be impacted and they will talk about you. And that builds a reputation, and that builds your career or your practice.
Yeah. Two things you said I want to go a little deeper into, because I when you said the fluid, it just really resonated with me. And I suspect for some of the listeners, they may not know exactly what that means. I mean, you kind of spoke a little bit to it of, the science, being able to be fluid with the science and the artistry, and really taking what somebody's coming to them with, whether it's a problem or wanting more, and being able to, I think with their own unique finesse, help them change the way they're seeing it, approach a new strategy, or do something that they haven't thought of before in a way that helps them move forward. So could you talk a little bit more about that fluidity? Because I think that would be really helpful. I think you and I can I can make assumptions on what that means in my mind, but I suspect for the listeners, that might be really helpful.
I think another word for fluid, in the context that we are speaking about, is really being present. So it's that ability to be still enough within that coaching conversation with your client that you can just settle and you can be so present. And of course, we understand this. And, if another question comes out of this, that's okay. Within that presence and the deep listening, something will occur to you. And so rather than wanting to know the right questions to ask or wanting to have the perfect answer, you can drop all of that. And just by being present, the fluidity happens so that you're not trying to steer them. You literally are just with them in that present moment, deeply listening, and the fluidity comes, the flow comes, because you are not so suspended in your, I need to talk, you're just listening. And when it comes to the end of them expressing and unpacking and things unfolding, there's like a little evolutionary process that takes place for you, the coach, as well as for the client. And so they may very well give a little glimpse of what the answer is. And that's when you can what did you listening so deeply that you can be fluid enough to kind of stop or disrupt them at that point.
Yeah.
So
I love
rather
it. I love the fluidity. What you're pointing to is presence. And, one of the things that in practicing in the coaching gym that I saw for myself new that I'd never seen before is how the fluidity of my presence ebbs and flows. I was doing a coaching session where I got the feedback on I did a higher flame feedback session. And it was really cool because there was this one moment in the woman I was coaching where she had a deep emotional experience. And I could see that she was in emotion. And I didn't see this until she helped me see it. But what I didn't see that I was doing it at the time, but I I knew something really smart to say that I'd heard George Pransky say. But it was a little bit weird to say. And he even qualified it when he said it, which I thought also was really smart. So I attempted to qualify what I was about to parrot George Pransky saying, all excited about being smart. And what I said to qualify it is, look, I know how that feels. I know how you feel. I know how it can be. And blah, 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 whatever. And it was a great coaching session. But I asked, when I asked for more, what else can you help me see? She's like, no, there was that one moment when you said, I know what you feel like. When you said that, it was like, huh, you know what I feel like. And I recognized when she said that was the moment when Demi came in to the session. So like the fluidity, my presence sort of, ebbed back, or like it ebbed forward. Like it's like, ooh, I got something real smart to say here.
Right.
That was the moment when the impact floundered. The whole session, would ebb and flow a bit, but her helping me see that was like, oh my gosh. So I think it's like, overall, most of the session, I was more present and less of Demi was trying to come through. But it was so impactful for me to hear that and notice that. She helped me see it. I couldn't see it before. And it was like, that's when I was trying to be smart.
Wow. Well, I love that. And what a good client you have there that helps you with the truth,
Yes.
the truth of that. It's rare, but nice that you could have that feedback. And I guess that's what I mean about being present, because if you are present and out of the way, what's going to come through you. And like I said, this might lead to another question. Something definitely occurs when you're coaching and you're fully present. And very often at the end of that session, you can't even really remember the things you said because you were so in that moment. You were flowing so deeply with that client, and they made the impact. It's the eyes and the body language and everything, and they lean in and so on. And so that at that point, you could be, there's a fork in the road there. You could be like, oh, I'm so clever, or let me just stop and let it just marinate in this. Something has just happened. So rather than wanting to speak, it's more a case of, no, just settle down and see what happens.
I love that. I really love how you're talking about fluidity and presence together. Like that's being helpful for me right here and now, because I've seen how presence does kind of ebb and flow. I was able to see that in that one instance when she helped me see it, but I'm sure there's other places where I haven't seen it, but you can kind of get a sense and a feel from it. That's what I hear you saying too. There's a feeling to it. There is and when you were talking too, it's like I was thinking about that example I just shared. When I got excited, and I can see now as I'm reflecting, I can see how when I was getting excited to say something really smart, I was really paying attention to that, thinking that was really geared up for me, right? When I'm not thinking about anything, something occurs to me more that's going to probably be more valuable for them. Like if I could rewind that and do over and just disregard my thinking about wanting to be present, it would be really interesting to see how that replay would go differently.
Very much so. Very much so. Because in that moment, most of the time I find that I just drop into silence, and then I wait for a cue, and normally I get that. And it sometimes it comes from the client, and sometimes it comes through me. And then I know, but I would not have picked that up if I wasn't silent. And I was, there was this need to say something or to be smart or to, give the right next question. There is no such thing in preparation.
Yeah.
It's in real time. It's always in real time. And that fluidity is real time. This real time, this real moment, it's such a beautiful experience for both the coach and the coachee in that moment. But you're so right. It is absolutely a feeling. You can feel when just everything is on there's a lightness, but there's an alertness. There's a living thing that's going on. It's like a pulse. Feels like a pulse.
The way
You know,
you
like
talk
a
about
heartbeat.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious what you teach your new coaches or in the training or once they've just graduated, because for me, this has been a finesse to develop. And, I've been doing it for almost 2 decades. And, I still have, ebbs and flows of my presence in that. I know what you're talking about. And those are the best sessions. And then sometimes I still today can get hooked where it's like, there's a lot of me in this, like get really excited about, what somebody's up to. And I'd really love to be a part of it. Like sometimes I just have to like have another conversation with them because there's just way too much of me there. But I know that now, but I'm curious, what would you say to new coaches that have a sense of what you're talking about? But like there's something about when we're new to coaching, kind of like when you're riding a bike for the first time, it feels awkward. There is a lot more mental, cognitive, like, oh, I pedal this way, balance. There's just, I don't know if it's even possible to have no thinking about, is this going good or not in, those first few sessions so I'm curious what you'd what you'd offer to a new coach in helping them see more about this.
Well, the first thing I'd say is there's just 3 points. Number 1, coach. Number 2, coach. Number 3, coach. Just coach and coach and coach. And be aware of where it's more of you and less of you, all of those things. Coach for free, sign up for a nonprofit, just coach, because that's the only way that you're going to actually get better. It's like lifting a weight to build a muscle. You lift it up once, there's no muscle. You've got to keep lifting it and keep lifting it and keep lifting it. And eventually there's this time where you just have to do it now and again. And so you don't have to do it so frequently. And I think that's a process of trust. It's just trusting that you are uncomfortable, and that uncomfortableness doesn't always go away. There's levels of discomfort. But as you go into a coaching session for a new client, I say to them, expect to be uncomfortable. That's why you settle your client, and really it's more for you. So there's a sense of for them that's just the way that you do things. That's the like the system that you have. But really, it's more for you, so that you can actually just settle, get out of the way as best you can, and then get present, and then do what you need to do. And the reason I say sign up for a nonprofit or just coach for free is because when you drop the expectation, so new coaches have this expectation that they're supposed to be good, that they're supposed to get it right, and that they will not be good enough and the client won't have a good experience. Yes, all of the above. Yes, that's true. So go where people are less expectant and you are not expecting anything of yourself. So you can find your fluidity, and it's almost experimental. But that's okay. You're still helping and you are still serving. And that, after all, is why you did this. If you were called, you're serving greatly. So go serve. And you'll see there's a process that will unfold.
I love that. I love that. And I'm curious what you see about if there's a difference in people who get more out of coaching training and who are more successful moving forward, like giving themselves permission to suck. Like there's a natural learning curve that all humans go on when they're learning something new. And I know for me, there were a few coaches that had impacted me so greatly that I'm like, I want to do what they're doing. And then when I went through training and I working with these masterful coaches, they make it look so easy. And in my head, I think I can do that. And then when I went to go and have conversations and coach my first few clients, it was like, I can't do that.
Oh, you hit the nail on the head. You really did. I think with experience comes this ease. And at first blush, it looks like, wow, I can do this. I can do it quickly. I can make money. And I think that's where the real, that sort of difference in a good coach as opposed to a coach that's struggling to be a good coach, is that you just think it's going to be this easy, simple thing. It's simple, but not simple in the way that you shouldn't put effort. Once you've done it, it's that same thing. It's lifting that weight and building that muscle. It becomes seamless and easy over time. But there's still that moment when you come into a coaching session, even for me, and I've been coaching for 40 years. This is my 41st year. And it's a transformation coach for
Amazing.
long time. But before, it wasn't even called coaching. It was leadership training, before the advent of the coaching and all of that. That Tony Robbins, I think, I don't even know who did that. But you are supposed to, if you are really present, there will be that moment where you need to settle. And then there's this shift. And that's when the needle moves a lot faster, because you're not trying to get over all of the thinking about it. You're just being present. You're just there. And that's why I say, coach, 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 go coach for free, go and sign up with a nonprofit, because you will just be in that space where you're not trying to think that they are looking at you and they might say something about you. They're so grateful for what you're giving to them. And that builds your confidence.
I love that. That brings my mind back full circle. One of the things I wrote that I wanted to circle back with you is when you were talking about listening, deep listening. And I was going to ask you, and as I was formulating the question in my mind, I saw this for myself too. And so I wanted to see, it was, if I had to do it over again, like what advice would I give myself out of training to make my learning curve more graceful, more enjoyable, and start, because it's like, I did 6 years of coaching and within an organization, Sharon, and I didn't get better. I was getting paid however the session went. And I remember then when I signed up for a coaching mastermind, there were coaches that had only been coaching for 2 years that were way more impactful than my coaching. And so I'd love if we could, maybe point new coaches, like as they're building that muscle and just getting out there and coaching, like what are, 1 or 2 of the things that would really the difference that makes the difference. And the one that came to my mind first was the listening. But I'm curious, like.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest skill that you want to cultivate as a coach, because people think they listen.
Mm-hmm.
The first time you really put them into an exercise and you give them instruction, and then most people realize that they're really bad listeners, and that's something that you can really, really develop over time. You can test it everywhere. You can listen to music more deeply, not just conversations. You could listen to a program on TV more deeply, just being with a friend, sitting at, So any time that you are thinking of what it is that you need to say, you're basically suspending and cutting yourself off from what is attempting to flow through you. You thinking that it's coming from this, your intellect. And really, what I've seen, the greatest coaches that I've been exposed to and that I've seen come through the practice are those that really are very, very intentional about being so present that they actually don't have a clue what they might say. And then it comes so easily. And I think, like you said, you were in that environment where you were getting paid. And a successful coaching practice, earning money and making money is a byproduct of listening and serving. It's a byproduct. It just doesn't come. And if you really want to improve, those are the 2 things that are essential. And it's one of the most important things that I teach from day 1 all the way through their 6-month training, is we start to listen deeply. And then they really get so proficient in it. And then, of course, just getting out of the way, noticing when it's more of you. And so you'll see that more. And then it becomes intolerable eventually. You're just like, I don't want that anymore. And so I think you get to show up for yourself first. And here's the thing, you can't really lead people, in a coaching environment to be good coaches if you don't know how to lead yourself. It comes first. You really have to practice that, radical self-love, radical self, which leads to radical self-care, which leads to the fun and the enjoyment of coaching, rather than that, oh, it's got to work. And that's that part about making money. It's like walking into a store and having the salesperson over your shoulder and say, buy this, because they want to make the sale. And people can smell that. And it's so off-putting. So if you get that off the table up front for yourself, and that's called self-leadership. It's not about anything more, but being present and listening, getting out of the way, seeing what's coming through. Literally, the rest of it is just building on that for me.
I love the listening thing, because it's like, I thought I was a good listener. And this past year, my daughter showed me how I really wasn't. And she kept saying to me, Mom, you never listen to me. And I was trying, I took even these, out of all the trainings and exercises that I've done, tried to do those with her, did reflective listening, like just mimicking what she's saying so she feels. But what happened is there was this one night where she was so great. I call her one of my greatest teachers. She basically said, Mom, when I ask you to listen, I want you to not say anything. And I was like, okay, let me try that. The things that she was saying were really hard for my ego and my mind to hear, because it was a lot of hearing what I was doing wrong and, why she was upset at me. And I had to source a new level of humility in that to be able to actually listen to her. But it was the most amazing experience, because as I did, I realized, oh my gosh, this kid for so long has just been trying to share with me what her experience is. And because I don't want that to be her experience, I have been finding sneaky ways to try to manipulate her opinion. But ever since that night of listening to her, she's given me many more practice opportunities to do it. But I cannot believe how easy things get when I can actually hear.
Wow.
All of my frustrations with her or things I need, it's like when I really listen and really can take in what it might be like to be her, things just like melt away.
That's
Punishment
beautiful.
makes no sense in those moments. Punishments are like, it's like, and we have this really deep connection, and then we're together looking at what to do, instead of being at odds, and I just learned so much about that. And that's why I think that might be, for new coaches, one of the best things to intend to develop more mastery with, because it's almost like when the deeper we can listen, the impact becomes inevitable. What to say, how to say, what to do. I just think that's so profound.
What you are pointing to there is this listening, which creates connection. And when you are not connecting, nothing's landing. There is no impact. So that's, you've got a great teacher there. Lucky you.
A little guru. I know. It makes me think, one of the things in enrollment, I like that George Pransky has said is, you want to become an expert in their world. And how else could we do that by not really listening?
Exactly. Because there's this constant thinking about you're trying to parent, you're trying to sway, you're trying to, guide in a direction, because that's what you do as a parent, right? Well, that's the idea of. But there is a time when that child is at a level of maturity where they're no longer looking to you to tell them. They are looking to you to just be there. because their experiences, the thing that you spoke about, their experience of life is a separate reality to yours. But up until a certain point, it's you're immersed in each other's ways, and they must do that. They must leap off from there and be in their reality, and they're not you. But I so get that, and I so understand it. Having parented 4 children myself, I understand that.
Yeah, and I mean, this girl is like, I mean, it was like, it's raising a leader, which is really different. She's very stubborn and vocal and opinionated and strong and like determined, and she's not going to put up with any of my shit, And so there was a phase where it was really difficult because I didn't know how to listen. So I was pushy. I would, I would disregard how she's feeling, and try to turn it into a better feeling, which makes me laugh now. But it was really once this, like in this listening, and it really helped me to remember that she has her own wisdom too.
Oh, that's so key. That's
And
so
then
key.
in getting to this place of listening, parenting has become so much easier, because when we have an issue, I'm seeking to like get to understanding, and then we're both on the same side looking at it, instead of each of us in different perspectives looking at it. And when two people are looking from the same angle at something together, from that deeper place of wisdom, like what to be done becomes so obvious. It's like as obvious as the nose on your face. And I've got buy-in. She's, usually we're in agreement.
That sounds to me like co-creation.
Yeah. And isn't that coaching at its best too? Like, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and in the coaching conversation, that's really what you're doing. You're like the biggest supporter of their world, their way, their style, their, not yours. You're irrelevant in that. And I think, just to go back to what makes a good coach, it's one of those points is that you can't be what you think they want you to be. You must be you.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And that's puts you like the acceptance of that is going to make a lot less noise going on in your head, which will make you a better listener. And what's really cool about this too, what you and I know, Sharon, is that everybody has like the capacity to listen at this level doesn't need to be learned. It's innate.
It is.
It's
Absolutely.
and the less noise we pay attention to in our head or we think is important, the easier it is to listen. I had to wrestle my ego a little bit. My daughter really helped me see that. It was the love of her for her that made that worth it. And I think with clients, you can feel the love for them that also can make listening easier and settling into yourself more.
Absolutely. And that goes back to that whole ego thing. If I know better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as a parent, you've seen it, but as a coach, if that's the premise from which you're working on, that's more than motivational. Do this and get that. That's not the kind of coaching that we do. It's inspirational. It's insightful. So you give them that. You actually are suspending their connection to their source, to their wisdom, and that's not helpful at all.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in that trap as a coach. I feel like I've made all the mistakes. That's why I wanted to do the coaching gym. I've made all the mistakes in my 20 years and I've learned so much from it, and I'm hoping for others to benefit. But I remember a time where, when I really wanted to make more money as a coach, I thought the way was going to be to just help my clients get more results so that they could go and tell more people, I'll get more referrals. And, I'll never forget, I have this one client that in that phase that I was working with, and she told me, man, that year that I worked with you, as a result of our work together, I've made more money than I've ever made in my entire life. But now I need to take it. I'm so exhausted.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's so interesting.
And that was a client that went kind of well, but some of them, my agenda of trying to push them towards action was so me focused that it fell flat. I lost the clients. They just didn't feel good.
Well, it's action according to Demi.
And
that's always That's always going to fall short of their wisdom, right?
and take a lot of effort on both of our parts. So yeah. Well,
And that's the
I want to circle back to I want to, before our conversation, I was talking to Al Kenny, and he and I were in that conversation. I told him what you and I were going to be talking about, and he just loved that. But we got into this idea of what we're saying is the question is, should I take a coaching training or not? And one of the ways that we were looking at it is like, why wouldn't you? Because it just is going to make you a better human. It might help a lot. It can't hurt. And I think you were saying this too, is that like, why not take the training and then from there see if you want to create a career or not?
exactly that. And it goes back to that calling. If it just feels like it's so compelling, then that's your sign, that's your barometer that you should do it,
Yeah.
because you can't override that.
Yeah.
Because it will get louder and louder. And if it's been nudging you for years, then it's clear that that's what you should do. And like you say, then there is a decision that you can make. But it's so much harder if you haven't done the training to step into that world. And of course, once you do the training, you've got to stay in the conversation. This is where I feel we're going to, those percentages that you were referring to, the 10% of the people that do well. I've seen that. The evidence is so clear. Those that think they know and try to stay away. I mean, I've been doing this for so long, and I have coaches all the time, and I'm always involved, and I'm immersed in this work from the time I wake up until the time I go to sleep, not as an intention, but just as a way of being. So if you're not in the conversation and you're in another kind of an industry where that it's not that present and it's not that fluid and it's not that real, it's that much harder, and most people are. And so there's this idea of like, no, this is too hard. But the struggle of it that makes it hard is you not allowing yourself the time just to be with the people that can be there for you and be on the same page as you. And that's how we learn together. So it's not me, puffing myself up, trying to impress. It's me saying, no, I would like to learn more. I would like to see more.
Yeah. I mean, in my mind, a coaching training is a training on how to be a more impactful human being for others.
Totally.
And how to be more settled in myself.
Mm.
And so like, if you can swing it, like, why not do it? And then, from there, playing with it, staying in the conversation, seeing where it leads you without trying to force your agenda on where to go. You can have a little, like the fluidity of, where does this want to go? I think, and also the more people I coach, like every time I coach somebody, it informs me of where to go next. I see more things, and it kind of it kind of takes on a life of its own.
Oh, well, it is really the best gig in the world, because it's like every client that, they are impacted, hopefully, if you're a good coach, but the impact on you, the lessons for you are so immense. And that in itself is just that, if I don't feel good on a day, I
Yes.
know when I sit in front of that client, or I run a group, or I'm training coaches, I leave there with so much more energy, because there's just something that is so beautiful, and I'm really out of the way as best I can. And so something comes through me, and then I get lifted as well, as much as them, and impacted as well. And I love you referring to, just makes you a better human being. I think coaching makes you a very successful human. And what I mean by successful, it's not just, economically. It makes you really successful at relationships, at health, at finances, at friendships. There's just so many beautiful benefits. So basically, everybody could be a coach, really.
Well,
Everybody
I've
could.
often said in my mind, sales, leadership, parenting, and coaching are one and the same.
They really are. They really are. Anytime that you are showing up and somebody is in front of you, you have an opportunity to make an impact. And why would you want to miss to make the best impact you possibly could? But you
Yeah.
need to know how the system works, not the
Yes.
system of coaching, the system of the human psyche. And once you've got that,
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a time with me and my husband where we fought a lot and then we didn't talk about things for a long time. And I realized that was my wisdom, both of our wisdom, because we didn't know how to communicate in a way that could facilitate a deeper connection. It would create more discord. And it has been, what I've been able to develop in myself as a better human being, to become a better listener, to see more of his psychological innocence in mine. So I don't buy the bait my mind is giving me about how he's wrong and I'm right as much. I still do sometimes, but I know I can feel when I'm hooked. And then, we've developed a system of corners when that happens. Let's come back to this when the mind settles. So it really has. It really has. I feel it's saved our marriage. So I want to close by reading a quote and then asking you a question. So, but this quote is, I've heard Michael Neill shared. I don't know if it was in our super coach training that we did, but it's from Ira Glass. And it says, it's about doing creative work and the learning curve. So I want to share this for new coaches because it's one of my favorites. And it says, nobody tells people who are beginners, and I really wish somebody had told this to me, is that all of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But there's a gap that for the first couple of years, you're making stuff. What you're making isn't so good. It's not that great. It's really not that great. It's trying to be good. It has ambition to be good, but it's not quite that good. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, your taste is still killer. And your taste is good enough that you can tell that what you're making is kind of disappointment to you. A lot of people never get past that phase. A lot of people at that point quit. And the thing I would just like to say to you with all my heart is that most everybody I know who does interesting creative work, they went through a phase of years where they had really good taste and they could tell what they were making wasn't as good as what they wanted it to be. They knew it fell short. It didn't have the special thing that we want it to have. Everybody goes through that. And for you to go through it, if you're going through it right now, if you're just getting out of that phase, you got to know it's totally normal.
It's one of the things that I say to my coaches is go out and fail big, make mistakes, get it wrong. Nobody will know but you. But the more you do that, the better it gets. And as a beginner, I love that quote, and it's so true. It reminds me of that other one. I think Michael has also referred to it, where it says something about don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do that. Because what the world needs is people who come alive. So it's that thing again. It's so simple. It's like, forget about all of the good and the better and the best. Just go do that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, so my closing question for you, as for all guests, is what's the number one thing you find helpful in being a human being, or most helpful?
That is so easy for me to answer because it's been a mantra of mine for as long as I can remember. And it's this, it's being okay with whatever shows up. So living the life that is revealed to you as it arrives for you, and being okay with that has got to be the secret to happiness for me. It creates laughter, it creates fun, it creates joy because there's no resistance. Here it is. What am I going to do? How am I going to respond?
I feel like we could do another podcast on just that.
I agree.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for coming and
Thank you.
sharing this. This is so great. We'll put all of your details of your coaching school. Do you want to say a little bit about the coaching training just as we're wrapping up here?
Yeah, well, it's called MindFit, MindFit Coaching Academy, and we've got a lovely nonprofit called Wings of Hope as well. And MindFit Coaching Academy, we've got a program called The Awakening, which is all about the foundation building of the principles. And then the coaches training is called The Calling. And then we put people through the deepening so that they can learn more. So there's always a place for everyone to go. If you don't want to be a coach and you do the awakening, you go to the deepening. So it's a lovely roadmap, if there is such a thing for coaching, but it is a lovely roadmap to lead you to a place where you can just gain your confidence and be immersed with other people on the same path.
I love that you have so much offerings for integrated support and ongoing deepening of the work, because it can be really easy to just, I mean, I remember that feeling. I mean, I got my first coaching training a long time ago, and there wasn't a lot of that stuff out there. And so I really floundered. Just being able to learn it and then go practice and then come deepen your understanding. Like, you'll get a lot more out of, I've gotten a lot more out of training once I had some experience under my belt. So I had reference points, and then just being able to have a little bit of hand holding, or I guess just to normalize the experience too, and learn from others is so, so great. So I love that you have so much support offerings. I would say, like, there ought to be for coaches, it's not a get rich quick industry. It's just not. And so to really approach it as if any other profession that makes a good living, you really want to deeply invest for 3 to 5 years and really take in as much investing in yourself and developing yourself as you can, because it's, the more impact you can make, the more value you bring, and dollars follow value.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you, Demi.
Thank you, Sharon.
Bye.